Hey there, Stampers. Happy Friday. Welcome to this week's Lunch and Learn session. My name is Sherry Roth. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Alberta, Canada. And today I'm going to share with you 4 cards created from a 6 by 12 inch piece of patterned paper. All right, so let me just update my iPad here, make sure we're somewhat straight. Okay, let's see here. Oh, we're not too bad. Okay, all right, so I'm going to be creating using the Traditions of Saint Nick paper pack, which is a paper pack from the Stampin' Up! Online exclusive section of our website. And as you can see, I don't have a lot of this paper pack left. This will be my last Christmas crafting session, and then I'm moving on to other things. So this paper pack actually has a stamp set that coordinates with it. So on page 11 of the the September to December mini catalog, there is a stamp set called St. Nicholas. And there's coordinating dies with it as well. And the dies will actually cut out some of the images from the patterned paper. So you can see here. Now I don't have this bundle. I don't have the dies. I just have the patterned paper. So I wanted to show you that you don't need to own everything in order to still create beautiful cards. Of course, if you have the dies, it's easier, but I just went ahead and fussy cut some of these images to use on my projects. Okay. All right. So let me set that aside here. Now there are also some other patterns in here. What I like about this paper is, first of all, I love the colors that are in it. But I like that there's kind of some generic patterns in here. So you don't have to use these patterns for Christmas. But the other side is a little bit more kind of holiday themed. All right. And look at this. I love this pattern. You can see that I've fussy cut quite a bit of the images from this particular pattern. I absolutely love it. And then there was an entire sheet, well, 2 entire sheets of St. Nicholas and some trees as well, which I went ahead and I fussy cut. I don't have any of that left because I just loved it so much. So if you're crafting along with me, you're going to want to pull out a 6 by 12 inch piece of patterned paper, and it can be any pattern paper. Yeah, and it doesn't even matter if it's, well, if it's obviously directional, then you'll want it to go in this direction. So 12 inches tall by 6 inches across. Okay. All right. And then you'll want to pull out some coordinating cardstock. And the other thing that you'll want to do is you'll want to have a look at either pattern papers where you can cut images from for your focal points, or pull out a stamp set or dies where you can die cut a focal point image. So you'll want something that is, you know, a little bit on the larger side of things. And then you'll need a greeting set. So I've used the Brightest Glow, which is my favorite Christmas greeting set. I love this greeting set. It's my most used Christmas greeting set. Actually, probably my most used Christmas set. And then I'll be sharing a few other things along the way. Okay, so we're gonna start by cutting our patterned paper. I'm gonna grab my paper trimmer here, and okay, we're gonna rotate it so that the long edge is at the top. Excuse me. And we're going to cut it at 4 inches. So 4 inches. So this piece measures 4 by 6. And then we're going to rotate it so that this piece, the long edge, is at the top. And we're going to cut it at 5 1/4 inches. Okay. So these 2 pieces will be for the same card. So we're going to set those aside. Then we're going to grab our second, or our larger piece. We're going to rotate it again so that the long edge is at the top, and we're going to cut it at 2 1/2 inches. Okay, we're going to set that piece aside. And then we're going to take this piece, we're just going to slide it over. We're going to cut it so it's 4 inches. And then we're going to rotate this and we're going to cut it at 3 inches. So we'll have 2 3 by 4 inch pieces. And then this piece we're going to leave whole for now. We are going to trim it down a little bit later. Okay, so we are going to start, we'll start with these ones. So these two, the first 2 pieces that we cut, and actually this piece is going to be used for it as well. All right, so I'm going to pull out my pieces and I'll explain what I've got here. So I've got a piece of copper clay cardstock. This is going to be my card base. So it measures 5.5 by 8.5 and it's scored at 4 1/4. So just a standard size card base. I've got a piece of white, which will be for the inside. I've got a piece of vellum, and I'll explain why I chose to add the vellum. That measures 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. And all of these measurements will be in today's blog post. So don't worry about writing these down. You can always refer back to that blog post. All right. Good morning, Sheila. Good morning, Layla. 11 degrees. Wow. Nice. All right. I've also got a piece for my greeting. This piece measures 1 by 5.5 inches. And then I've got some trees that have been cut from my patterned paper. And I'm also going to use one of my St. Nicholas's or my Santas, these 2 pieces, and then this I'm going to use for the envelope flap. Okay. All right. So we've got all of our pieces. Let's set these pieces aside and we're going to start assembling. So fold our card base first. And we're going to adhere this piece right onto here. I'm going to use multi-purpose glue for this. So, and I've just put my multi-purpose glue into a glue bottle that I picked up on Amazon, and I have linked that product in the description. All right, so that's going to go on there. And then, okay, so this is going to be the setup of the card. So it's going to look something like this, and our greeting's going to go on here. Now I found this to be just a bit too busy, so that's why I decided to put in the vellum just to soften that center bit. You can still see that fabulous pattern paper underneath, but it just softens it, makes it look a little bit less busy. So I'm going to add a strip of adhesive. So this is just our regular seal adhesive, just along here where I know that my greeting is going to cover it over, and I'll just center that right on here. So you can still see the pattern through it, but it just softens it a little bit. Okay, now we're going to bring in our greeting, and I am going to use this Merry Christmas from the Brightest Glow stamp set, and I'm going to use some oh, I apologize. I'm going to use some Early Espresso ink. And I'm going to stamp it, being mindful that my Santa is going to go about there. So I want to stamp it right beside my Santa. Okay. And let's hope that we get this straight. Looks pretty good. All right. Okay, so now we can adhere this strip, and I'm going to cover my adhesive that you can see here. And this strip is the length of the card. And I don't want to see this little bit of vellum at the bottom, so I'm actually going to make sure that it covers that vellum so you don't see it peeking out from below the greeting. And that's just personal preference. Okay, so we're going to stick that on here, and we're going to use some dimensionals to add our Santa. And I'm just looking for my scissors. Oh, they're on the other table. Okay, getting low on dimensionals here, so we'll just use the bits around the edges. And I'll just add several of these kind of on here to pop my Santa up. It's always nice to give your cards a bit of dimension. It really steps them up. It's a simple way to step up your cards. So we'll pop him right on there. The other thing that I can do now that I know where my Santa's gonna go, I'm just gonna add just a little bit of glue in here, and that will just help prevent that vellum from kind of flopping around. All right, so we've got that. Now we're gonna bring in our trees. So we've got 3 trees here. So I'm just gonna figure out my positioning. I think we're gonna go like that. This one I'm gonna put on flat. And then this one I'll pop up. All right. And I'm just going to position it so that I'm not covering over or too much of my greeting. Let's do it right about there. Okay. And then we're going to add this little strip to our inside layer. Because we cut this 4 inches high, it's the same measurement as our inside layer. So it fits perfectly, and that's a great way to use those little strips. So I always try to use up those little strips while I'm crafting so that I don't have leftover pieces. Just add a little bit of glue behind here. This is gonna go inside. And if you have extra pieces that you've cut from your patterned paper, you can always add those inside. I'm not gonna add anything extra. Oh, excuse me. Anything extra at the moment because I need to make sure that I have enough. I fussy cut that whole sheet, so I wanna make sure that I have enough for all of my cards. But we are gonna come back and embellish that. But first I'm gonna take this piece and I'm gonna add it to my envelope flap. I love getting cards in the mail that have a decorated envelope, even if it's something just as simple as having patterned paper on an envelope flap, because it's a little peek at what's inside. Okay, so then we're gonna trim around this. Like that. So we've got a matching envelope, but we're not going to get rid of this. We're going to come back and we're going to use some of that in a bit. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to add a little bit of embellishment. So this is what I love to do. My favorite part is embellishing cards. So I pulled out some Pebbled Path jute. This is a product from the annual catalog, and it's quite thick. So when I use it, I like to kind of separate the fibers so it's not quite as thick. So I'm just pulling one of those fibers and I'm pulling it out. This is a really long piece. Oh, there we go. We broke it, but that's okay because I'm not going to need the whole length. And now I'm going to tie a bow. So this is just a great way to add a little bit of texture without adding a lot of bulk. If you regularly watch me create, you know that I love baker's twine or linen thread, anything like that. So You gotta know that I'm going to include something along those lines on a card like this. Okay, so I think we're gonna put it right there. So I'm just gonna put a little dot of multi-purpose glue. You can also use a mini glue dot. I do find that if you use multi-purpose glue, you have to give it a bit of time to set. All right, so see how that just adds a little bit of texture? And then we're also going to take some of our rustic metallic dots. Now I chose these because this paper collection kind of has a little bit of a rustic feel to it. So it's a little bit of a more vintage or traditional Christmas feel. So these just work really, really well with this paper. So I'm just gonna add 3 of these on here like that. And now we've got our first beautiful Christmas card using the traditions of Saint Nick. We've got a decorated inside, and then we've got a decorated envelope flap as well. So that is card number 1. So let's set that aside here. I'm trying to find space. And we'll move on to card number 2. Okay, so for this card, I'm going to use one of my 3x4 inch pieces, and I'm going to bring in this piece. Oh, excuse me. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this piece and then trim it so that it's nice and even. So you should have about 1/4 of an inch left. So I'll just trim that down. This piece I'll toss, but now I have this tiny little narrow strip that I'm going to use. Okay, I've got a thick white card base, and we'll just fold that in half. And then I've got a piece of pebbled path, and this measures 3 1/8 by 4 1/8. I've got a piece of white. We're going to do some stamping on that. And then I've got my patterned paper, which measures 3 by 4. So I'm going to add here my patterned paper to my gray mat. So that I have about 1/16 of an inch all the way around the edges. I love just that narrow bit of a mat around the edges. And then we're going to add this to the center of our card so that we have an even border top and bottom, and then an even border side and left and right. Okay, that looks straight. Okay, we'll cover this over and we're going to do some stamping. So this time I'm going to take the greeting that says, "Wishing you a season of hope and light." This is also from the Brightest Glow stamp set. And we are going to use our pebbled path. So we're going to use the color of our mat. So that's one of the things that I love about Stampin' Up! Is how everything kind of coordinates. All right, we're going to stamp this right in the center. Good morning, Kathy. And then we're going to bring in the Heartfelt Hexagon punch. This is my current favorite punch. I love the shape of this punch. So we're just going to slide it in. When you flip it over, you can see right through. Makes it easy to line it up and punch it. Good morning, Mom. Oh, excuse me. Okay. So now we're going to bring some more of this pebbled path twine back, and I'm going to see if I can still continue to separate this without breaking it. So I still have this one strand in here, and it doesn't help when it's really long. I had this was what was left on the spool. So it's much easier if you have a shorter piece, and we might just end up using it just as is. Let's just see what we can do here. It's still a little thick, but the way I'm going to use it on this card probably wouldn't matter too much. Try gonna get rid of some of this bulk in the center here. Here we go. Plus, I want to make sure that I have enough for all of my cards. Okay, so we pulled it from that side. Let's pull it from this side. Oh, you know what? We're just gonna separate this. Okay, we'll save that for another one. We're gonna use this one. Okay, we'll just get rid of some of these fibers that are floating around here. I'm gonna take a little bit of my seal adhesive and just put that on the back. And then I'm gonna do kind of like a figure 8. So I'm just going to loop it around. Like this. So this is another way that you can use these fibers to get some added texture to your projects. Okay, so we'll do that. We'll add some dimensionals to the back of this card, or back of this piece, just to pop it up a little bit. And I'm gonna put some right over top here. This will hold those down. And then we'll peel off the backing and we're gonna stick this to our card. And this is gonna go, it's gonna hang off the edge just a little bit. So I just wanna make sure it's straight. Okay, so we could keep it like that. I mean, that's a nice card, right? But we're gonna step it up a little bit. And remember that patterned paper with all those cute little images on it that is from this paper pack? I went ahead and I fussy cut lots of them. So we're gonna use these on the outside, and then I've got more that we're gonna use on the inside of our card. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna tuck this guy, and we might have to trim it a little. I'm just gonna trim off the base so I can tuck it in there. I'll add a little bit of glue here. This is gonna get tucked underneath here. And then this guy's gonna get a little mini dimensional. And we're gonna pop him up here like that. Then we've got our candy cane. So we're gonna add a little candy cane in here. This is also a great way to bring in some additional colors. We're just gonna tuck that in behind. Then we're gonna add another mini dimensional to this coffee cup or hot cocoa cup. We'll add that right on here like that. And then we're gonna do this little, I don't know if this is a cookie or what it is, but we're gonna add a little bit of adhesive to the back of this. And we'll add this. We're gonna tuck this kind of right underneath here. And then I've got a little candy, and this piece is gonna go right here. And look how cute that little cluster is. Isn't that adorable? So fun. All right, and then for the inside, I've got a few more that have been cut out. And we're gonna use this strip. So remember I said you don't wanna waste anything, right? So this is a little longer, excuse me. So we will need to trim just a little bit off of this. So I'm gonna put this right up this side here. And then we'll trim off this excess. And then we can go and create another little cluster using these little bits and bobs. So we've got our glass of cider. We've got our little gingerbread man. Let's add a dimensional to him. Actually, we're gonna add the candy cane first. So we'll add that about there. And then we'll do our gingerbread man. And then we have this little candy that we can add as well. It's so fun creating these little clusters. And there we go. So we've got a simple card where we used a 3 by 4 inch panel and then just embellished with some of the little bits and pieces that we cut out from a pattern paper. So I encourage you to look at your pattern paper and see if there's images that you can cut out. But if not, I'm sure that you've got some great either stamps or dies in your collection that you can use. So if you had like a holly stamp, holly berry stamp, you could stamp that and then die cut it or fussy cut it and add it to the top. Or if you had a smaller like little poinsettia or something, you could add that to the top. So have a look and just see, you know, you need something that is about, I don't know, that's maybe 1.5 inches. So it doesn't have to be a bunch of tiny little things. It could be just one larger image as well. All right, so that is card number 2. And then card number 3. Okay, so for this one, I've got, excuse me, I've got my Santa. I've got 3 trees. I've got a white strip for my greeting. I've got a pebbled path piece, which measures 3 1/8 by 4 1/8. And we're going to use our other 3 by 4 inch piece for this card. I've got a 4 by 5 1/4 inch piece of white for the inside. And my card base is a piece of copper clay. All right, so we're going to, and for all of the cards, we're actually using just this side. I actually didn't use this side on any of the cards. I much prefer this side, so that's why I stuck with that. Okay, so we are going to first adhere these pieces. That's going to go right in the center so that we have just that little bit of a border. And then this is going to go in the center here. Okay, we're going to stamp our greeting on here. And this time I'm going to use the Season's Greetings, and I'm going to bring in my earliest spread. Actually, no, let's use Pebble Path. Okay, let's see if we can get it in the center and straight. Well, it's a little higher than I would like it. Let's give it another shot. It's straight, and it'll do if I don't get this one better. That one's better. Okay. All right. Okay, so now we're going to piece our pieces, or put our pieces together. Actually, before we do that, we're going to take our inside piece, and remember this strip that we had left over. We're going to take this and we're going to put this on the bottom of our card base. So I'll just add a little bit of adhesive there. And then we'll trim this piece off. And we're going to save this for our last card. We're going to use that on our last card. Okay, let's add this to the inside. Okay. So we're going to start by adding our Santa. We'll use some dimensionals. And that sheet is done. So let's use some mini dimensionals here. We use them around the edges. All right. Okay, so we're gonna pop this Santa right about here. And then we're gonna take our fiber that we have left here. We'll tie a bow. And we'll just pull it a little bit. We'll trim off these ends. And then I'm going to use a mini glue dot. Just to adhere this. This is going to kind of sit right about here. And then we're going to trim this down a little bit because it's a little long. So I'm going to trim it about like that. And then this is going to go across like this. So I'm going to add a dimensional on this side, but then some flat adhesive on this side where it will sit where the Santa is already popped up. Just make sure that's straight. Okay, so we see a little bit of that fiber peeking out there, and then we can add our trees. So let's start, we'll add this one first. Actually, are these all different sizes? We'll add this one first. We'll do that right about there. And we might actually only use 2 trees here, and we'll put one on the inside. Okay, and then this guy's gonna get popped up. Maybe I'll tuck it under, just so it doesn't cover my greeting. There we go. We're gonna add some of our rustic metallic dots. So let's do one here. We'll do one over here. Okay, and then we'll add this tree to the inside. And there we go. There is card number 3. So that was using one of the 3x4 inch pieces that we had cut at the beginning. And then card number 4. Okay, so again, excuse me, I have a piece of copper clay for my base. And then I've got a white layer for the inside. We're also going to use this on the inside. And then I've got a piece of early espresso that measures 3 7/8 by 5 1/8. And a piece of copper clay that I embossed using the Distressed Tile Embossing Folder. So remember I said that this pattern paper has kind of like a vintagey kind of feel to it. This embossing folder pairs really, really nicely with it. So this is the Distressed Tile. This is from the September to December mini catalog, but it is carrying over. I was so happy to see it was carrying over because I absolutely love it. Now, if you don't have, because I haven't used a die cutting machine up until now, this was the only thing that I used my Stampin' Cut and Emboss for. So if you don't have a die cutting machine or any embossing folders, you can replace this panel with a coordinating piece of pattern paper. So it does not have to be an embossed layer, okay? All right, so let's just cover this over for a minute. We're gonna do some distressing to this. So I'm gonna open my paper snips and I'm going to just carefully go around the edges to distress this piece a little bit more. And you do want to be careful, especially if it's embossed. You can still do this if you're using a piece of pattern paper, but if it's embossed, you do want to be careful because it will tear quite easily, which is okay because that just adds to the charm of it being kind of distressed. So I'm just going around the edges so you can see that it's kind of curled up a little bit. It just looks a little rough. And then I'm going to take the corner and I'm going to roll the cardstock up a little. So I'm just going to roll, bend, fold. So just curl it up just a little bit to add even more texture. And then we're going to start assembling our layers. So if you did emboss and did all that distressing, you do want to use a little bit more adhesive than you normally need to. And this is just going to be a narrow border of the Early Espresso around the edges. Just so we see a little bit of contrast before we put it on our card base, which is the same color. That's going to go right on here. So we have a little bit of a wider border. This is one of the things that I love to do. I love to vary the sizes of my borders. So you can see that I have that narrow border of the Early Espresso between the two copper panels. But then this copper layer is a little bit wider. So if I bring it up a little closer, you can see that distinction between the two mats. All right. Okay. So we're going to bring this piece back and we're going to use our Season's Greetings again. And I'm going to stamp that with some Early Espresso onto my white strip. Excuse me. I'm just going to grab my water here. Okay. Oh, that's better. All right. So I'm going to bring in my Santa and okay, now we have no more of that Pebbled Path twine, but I do have a little bit left of some, let's just take it all off, some Wild Wheat, which Wild Wheat is one of the colors that's in the Santa. So I'm going to take a little bit of this. This is probably way more than I need, but I am going to separate it. Let's see if we can do it without ripping it this time or tearing it. There we go. That's working much better this time. All right, so I've got a piece of this and we're just going to cover this over. I'm going to add a little bit of seal adhesive in behind here. And we're going to do, again, our figure 8. So this time we're doing it behind the Santa. Before we did it behind our label shape. And then we'll add some dimensionals. This is probably the most I've talked in a while here. I think that's why I'm coughing so much. Okay. I'll do one more. So how's everybody doing on their Christmas cards? Are you guys all done? Are they in the mail? I have my last batch to go out today. Okay, so we're gonna make sure we can see our fibers. We'll add our Santa right here. And then this is gonna go across like this. And I do wanna trim it a little bit. So I'm just gonna trim it right about there. And then, okay, let's get it straight here, right about there. Is that all you have to do, Dixie? Was that the last set that you needed to send? Okay, we're gonna add a couple dimensionals on here. That's gonna go across like this. That's a little crooked. Okay, and then we're gonna take our trees and we'll put one on flat. Oh, doesn't that feel good? Always just feels so good to just get it done. I did my team cards this morning. What did I do yesterday? I had a big mail out yesterday. What did I send yesterday? Oh, it was a swap that I'm doing. So I sent one of those swaps out yesterday, and then, yeah, team cards this morning. And next up are my family Christmas cards. My team cards already went out, but I need to do my family Christmas cards today. Okay, so we're just adding some of these rustic dots on here. And then we're gonna open this up and we'll work on the inside. So this piece, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flag the end. Oh, swaps are so great for ideas. I love doing them when a new catalog comes out. Speaking of swaps, I have a swap here to share with you using the stamps and the dies that coordinate with this paper. All right, and then I've got 2 trees left here, so I'm gonna add those to the inside as well. We'll add that one flat and we'll pop this one up. And then we'll add this to the inside. And we'll have used a 6 by 12 inch piece of patterned paper to create these 4 cards. And I couldn't use an entire sheet because I didn't have an entire sheet. All right, there we go. So there is card number 4. And card number 3. Card number 2, and then card number 1 with our matching envelope. And then here is a sample done using the stamp set and the dies that coordinate with this paper. So you can see that the image is the same as the image in the paper, but you have the opportunity to color it in these cute little stockings. I think the stockings will cut out one of the patterned papers, and she combined it with a different pattern paper rather than this pattern paper. So many layers, and like even just as a swap, coloring that in, like it's a pretty amazing swap. It's beautiful. All right, so there's a few ideas for you. And then before we go, I just wanted to let you know about a couple classes. One of them expires today. Registration closes today. And it's kind of along the vintage line. So I have a vintage scrapbook class coming up in January 6th. And look at this layout that we're going to create. Actually, it goes this way. I know you can't see the whole thing all at once, but it is beautiful. So we're going to use some new products from the upcoming January to April mini catalog, and we're going to create that layout. You get $10 worth of product. That unfortunately, having a class right at the beginning of January is a little tricky because I can only get a pre-order So I have limited, I can't order a lot of anything. So, so you get $10 worth of new product, and you can come and you can use my stamps. It is available to ship as well. We're using a bundle called the Notes of Nature. So this is the stamp set, and then there are coordinating dies that go with it. So if this was on your wish list and you're a scrapbooker and would like to make a vintage scrapbook layout, this is a great option. But registration closes for that today. So you'll want to make sure that you get your name down for that. All right. It is available in person or to go. And then also that same day, I am having a celebration class. So January 6th will be like 2 days after celebration starts. So we are going to play with some celebration product. So this class is either $35 or free with a minimum $60 purchase. And you can wait until celebration starts to place your order, but you do need to register for the class because I need to know how many kits to cut. So we're going to be making 4 cards using different celebration products. I've only got 3 designs so far, but let me share a quick peek. So we've got this one, and we've got this one, and this fun one. So those are 3 of the 4 projects that we're creating and using lots of celebration product. All right, so registration for that one is open until January 2nd. Just a reminder, you do need to register for the class. It is available in person or to go, but you don't need to actually make your purchase until, you can wait until celebration starts. All right, okay, so I think that is it. I will go back and edit this post so that it has all of the supplies listed in the description in case you have any questions about that. And I hope that you guys have a fabulous weekend, and I will see you again next week. All right, take care. Bye, guys.